Whether it's one thing or the other, the British sports promoter Eddie Hearn rarely manages to stay out of controversy. And he's back at it again, with his less than tasteful comments about Gervonta Davis. Well, Eddie is the head of Matchroom Sport, which represents a number of boxers among other athletes from other sports as well. And being in the boxing ring is a brutal experience. The environment around any sort of combat sport is particularly full of trash talk and overly enthusiastic comments. And sometimes, when you're in that environment, you can be a little less than careful about what you say. And y'all know what happens when people aren't careful. They say stupid stuff. That's exactly what seems to have happened with Eddie Hearn, who probably spoke a little too much when talking about Gervonta Davis.
He had an opportunity to move up and fight Demetrius Andrade when he moved to middleweight. I think he looks great. I think he could be a superstar, but he's just the worst matchmaker.
Eddie was talking about the American boxer when he said some things that can be interpreted as a little racist if you think about them. He might not have meant them in that way, but what he said wasn't exactly a smart thing to say in any context. You see, Hearn was speaking on DAZN's boxing show. They were talking about how Gervonta Davis refused to sign an offer with his company, Matchroom Boxing, and it seems that has ticked off the British promoter. Why? Well, he basically labeled Davis as not a deep thinker.
Is a baby clown. Tell them to get ready. That's what they do. They like a fight should be going on when stuff like that happen. Anything liable to happen. No. Oh, I ain't gonna lie. When stuff like that happen,
Eddie basically dug himself a hole with these comments, a hole that he'll probably find a little hard to come out of. In the opinion of the 43-year-old promoter, the American boxer lacks oversight, and it's dangerous because he isn't exactly a deep thinker and is not articulate enough. Yikes! Hearn tried to clarify himself further, but dug himself an even deeper hole if you ask me. In trying to give a clarification, he said that he didn't mean to disrespect Gervonta Davis. He called the 28-year-old boxer a bad mother effer and compared him to the likes of Mike Tyson, but he further emphasized his point that he's fearless and you can't get into his head. I think what might have happened here is that somewhere during the time that he was thinking about what he was saying in his head, he realized that he had made a blunder. At that point, he tried to cover it up, but it's 2023 and things don't work that way now, do they? The media never forgets, and neither will I. Like, we've seen this way too often for it to be a coincidence anymore. It happens to black athletes in almost every sport. It seems routine that if an athlete is black and the pundits want to praise them, it'll always be about how pacey, powerful, and resilient they are. And if it's a white footballer with the same attributes, it's technical ability, game awareness, and stuff like that. Honestly, it's gotten to the point where it's quite annoying. By no means am I just putting this on Eddie Hearn. All I'm saying is that this happens far too often in sports for it just to be a coincidence. The comments from the British promoter might not be intentional, but they are definitely tone deaf. However, the American boxer isn't giving Eddie Hearn the same room as I am. He talked about Hearn's tendency to say stuff like that and gave the actual reason why he refused to sign a contract with Matchroom Boxing. Davis himself responded by saying Hearn's general disposition and offer played a part in why he didn't sign a deal with Matchroom Boxing.
Yeah, I knew it was a shot that hurt him, but I didn't know it was just like that. To not know where you are and you know what I mean, had me up my game in the later rounds.
We saw him wobble in the eighth.
Next is going to be somebody else that's coming behind me and doing the same thing. You know what I mean? It's always about...
Hearn tried to defend his statement multiple times and also mentioned that what he said about Davis was meant as praise for him. He stressed that his intention was never to disrespect the 28-year-old American boxer. However, Davis just wasn't having it. He ignored the praise from the British promoter and instead focused solely on the part of the statement that was offensive to him. Gervonta said that he refused Hearn's offer to organize a fight between himself and Ryan Garcia because he wasn't a deep thinker. He took to Twitter, where he directed a couple of taunts toward the British promoter. He tweeted that he's not a deep thinker, and not being eloquent enough made him decline the offer sent by Hearn. He didn't just say that, he also called Hearn's offer Davis went on to explain that it's not just this statement from Hearn that makes him uncomfortable working with him, it's his general disposition. It looks like the boxer finds Hearn quite problematic overall. But what do some other people have to say about the matter? Well, Leonard Ellerbe thinks Hearn definitely meant to insult Davis. Sure, since Leonard Ellerbe is the CEO of Mayweather Promotions, it's very unlikely that you would hear anything positive about Eddie Hearn from him. The two have been known to get into a spat or two in the past as well.
What do you think would happen? You've spent all this money and you haven't developed a franchise. What it is that he's a very jealous guy. He's a very jealous guy. And what it is that reason why I say that. You know, here it is, a guy that has openly...
Ellerbe joined the whole discussion about Hearn's comments, saying that Hearn 100% meant to insult Davis, and that he knew exactly what he was saying. He also chimed in on Twitter with his rant about the whole matter. In his tweet, he addressed Eddie Hearn and called him out for what he said. He called Eddie a racist for his comments, and mentioned that he has no right to decide who's a deep thinker and who isn't. Ellerbe mentioned that this is the problem with people like Eddie, who seem to think that they know better than others, and that they're superior to others. He also took a dig at the British promoter, saying that they don't do stuff like that here, and then proceeded to call Eddie a clown. Well,
he's the biggest fucking clown in all of boxing, and I have
given the history between Hearn and Ellerbe, I don't really see a lot of love being lost between these two, at least for the foreseeable future. And I think that the Mayweather Promotions man could possibly have gone a little too overboard with his comments. But I do think that Eddie Hearn could have handled things a lot better. Gervonta Davis is a prized asset for Mayweather Promotions, and it's quite obvious that Hearn hasn't been trying to get his hands on him for a while now. However, his pursuit has been largely unfruitful. That's obviously frustrated him, and it's showing in his statements. With this latest statement, he may have burned any remaining bridges for bringing Davis into matchroom boxing. The world of showbiz and sports is glamorous, and anything can happen when crazy amounts of money get involved.
It's crazy. Now it's a normal thing to shop here like this. When you were a kid, this wasn't an option. To get punched in the face. Not that you get hit, but it's not an easy task.
But with how this whole fiasco has gone thus far, I would be genuinely surprised if we saw Gervonta Davis associated with matchroom boxing in any possible way. And that's exactly what this whole thing is about, if you ask me. That's why Leonard Ellerbe from Mayweather Promotions jumped in to defend the 28-year-old American boxer right off the bat. But looking at things objectively, Hearn could have been a lot smarter with his statement. He should know the world that we live in. When you're a media personality, there's just no room for stupid comments. There's a lot of weight on your shoulder when you're a public figure. Like me, you have the power to influence others. If Hearn says things like this, can you imagine what his followers will do? But since Eddie's always been a controversial personality, that probably won't bother him. What would bother him are his chances of signing any deals with Gervonta Davis in the future, or with other black athletes for that matter. And honestly, rather than giving explanations, how hard is it to just admit that you may have misspoken and apologize for it? Well, that's all I had on this whole fiasco between Eddie Hearn and Gervonta Davis. See you in the next video.